Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12. Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead, text number 8. Maitreya Uvacha Suraja Rajena Varaya Chudito Dhruva Mahabhagavato Mahamati Haro Savabre Chalitam Smritim Yaya Turatyayajnena Turatyayam Tamaha. Please repeat. Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
The great sage Maitreya said.
The great sage Maitreya said.
Saha.
Saha.
He.
Raja
Rajena.
Rajena.
By the King of Kings.
The King of Kings.
Kuvera.
Varaya.
For a benediction.
For a benediction.
Chuditaha. Being asked. Dhruva. Dhruva Maharaj. Mahabhagavata. First class pure devotee. Mahamati. Most intelligent or thoughtful. Harao. Unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Saha. He. Babre. Asked. Achalitam. Unflinching. Smritim. Remembrance. Yaya. By which. Torati. Crosses over. Ayatnena. Without difficulty. Turatyayam. Insurpassable. Tamaha. Nescience. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, when thus asked to accept a benediction from Kubera, the Yaksharaj, king of the Yakshas, Dhruva Maharaj, that most elevated pure devotee, who was an intelligent and thoughtful king, begged that he might have unflinching faith in and remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for thus a person can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily, although it is very difficult for others to cross. Purport. According to the opinion of expert followers of Vedic rites, there are different types of benedictions in terms of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. These four principles are known as Chaturvargas. Of all the Chaturvargas, the benediction of liberation is considered to be the highest in this material world. To be enabled to cross over material nescience is known as the highest Purushartha, or benediction for the human being. But Dhruva Maharaj wanted a benediction which surpassed even the highest Purushartha, liberation. He wanted the benediction that he might constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord. This stage of life is called Panchama Purushartha. When a devotee comes to the platform of Panchama Purushartha, simply engaging in devotional service to the Lord, the fourth Purushartha, liberation, becomes very insignificant in his eyes. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati has stated in this connection that for a devotee, liberation is a hellish condition of life. As for sense gratification, which is available in the heavenly planets, the devotee considers it to be a will-o'-the-wisp, having no value in life. Yogis endeavor to control the senses, but for a devotee, controlling the senses is no difficulty at all. The senses are compared to serpents, but for a devotee, the serpent's poison teeth are broken. Thus, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati has analyzed all kinds of benedictions available in this world, and he has clearly declared that for a pure devotee, they are all of no significance. Dhruva Maharaj was also a Mahabhagavata, or first-class pure devotee, and his intelligence was very great, Mahamati. Unless one is very intelligent, one cannot take to devotional service or Krishna consciousness. Naturally, anyone who is a first-class devotee must be a first-class intelligent person, and therefore not interested in any kind of benediction within this material world. Dhruva Maharaj was offered a benediction by the King of Kings, Kuvera, the treasury of the demigods, whose only business is to supply immense riches to persons within this material world, is described as the King of Kings, because unless one is blessed by Kuvera, one cannot become a king. The King of Kings personally offered Dhruva Maharaj any amount of riches, but he declined to accept them. He is described therefore as Mahamati, very thoughtful or highly intellectual. Maitreya Vacha Sarada Radina Varyachorito Dhruvo Mahabhagavato Mahamati Morao Sovabre Chalitam Smitam Yaya Turatyaya Nena Turatyayam Tamaha. Great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, when thus asked to accept a benediction from Kuvera, the Yaksharaj, king of the Yakshas. Dhruva Maharaj, that most elevated pure devotee, who was an intelligent and thoughtful king, begged that he might have unflinching faith in and remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For thus a person can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily, although it is very difficult for others to cross. There's a story found in the Panchatantra, which is a collection of moral anecdotes. Anecdote means a kind of interesting story, which is also very educative. So there's a history about how this Panchatantra came into being, that a king wanted to see his sons educated, but his sons were very not inclined. So he had one Brahmin recite all these nice stories of the Panchatantra. And this captured the interest of his sons, and thus they became very learned. So anyway, one of these Panchatantra stories is about 4 young Brahmanas who had just graduated from the Gurukul. So they had been blessed by their spiritual master that you are now nicely educated. Now you may leave this Gurukul ashram and get on with your lives as Brahmanas. So now these Brahmanas, although they were Brahmanas, and that is supposedly the most intelligent class of men, they actually were not as intelligent as Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was not interested in wealth as the goal of his life. Of course, a king must have wealth in order to do his business as a king. But we see what Dhruva Maharaj's actual priorities in life are in this verse. That when the great personality, Kuvera, the Yaksharaj, offered him take any benediction, what did he ask for? He was seeing it in this way. Here, this great personality, he's offering me one benediction, so therefore I must take the best of all benedictions. And what was that? That I may be always engaged in the Lord's devotional service. If there's only one benediction, maybe if there were 2 benedictions, then secondarily he might have asked, and Kuvera, make sure my kingdom is well taken care of so that I can manage nicely. He might have asked that, because it's within his right to ask that as Kshatriya. But at least we can see here his top priority is devotional service. So, but these 4 Brahmanas, 4 young Brahmanas, just graduated from Gurukul, their top priority was to get money. They discussed among themselves that now we've just got out of the Gurukul, so what's next? What's the next step of our life? Well, we're young men. Our graduation from Gurukul means that the brahmachari phase of our life is now coming to an end. So we should get ready for Grihastha ashram. That's next. And you've got to have money have money to maintain a wife, to maintain a house, so we should go get that. And we'll use, they were thinking like this, we've been nicely educated, so we can use our learning to get wealth. So they set out. And they had many adventures, but no money came. So then, but they heard that there is a great sage. They had wandered away from the Gurukul and come near, just at the foot of the Himalaya mountains. And there they heard there is a great sage on the way up. He lives on the way up into the mountains. He's very powerful, and he gives blessings. Whatever anyone wants, he can grant them. So they became very excited. And we tried in so many ways, by giving lectures and so on and so forth. To get money, but nobody gave us anything. So let's go see the sage. So they went up, and they found the cottage of the sage. And they told the sage quite frankly, "We want money." And he said, "All right. Then here." Then he told each one of them, "Hold out your hand." And in each hand, he put one ghee wick. And he said, "Now you just keep going. Just keep going up. And hold this ghee wick in your hand before you as you walk up the mountain." Now, if you walk up a mountain, you know, it's not very steady going. So it's certain if you're walking like this with a ghee wick in your hand, at some point, something will happen and the ghee wick will fall out of your hand. So he said, wherever the ghee wick falls, then you can be certain that under that spot there is some kind of wealth, up to gold. There'll be something valuable that you just dig out of the ground, just under the surface. No problem to get. And but it doesn't go beyond gold. His benediction of mine. So they were very happy. So they went up into the high mountains with their ghee wick in hand. And sure enough, at one point, one of the wicks dropped. And that Brahmana boy, he dug, and just a few inches under the surface, he found a big stalk of copper. Copper is valuable metal. So he was very happy. The others, they still had their ghee wicks. He was saying, look at all this copper. There's so much here. You just take and let's go. And they said, well, you know, the sage said up to gold. We still have our wicks in our hands. And he said, well, anyway, God gave me this. See, he was more intelligent. God gave me, somehow by God's grace, I got this copper. It's enough for me. So he just gathered what he could take in his arms and went back down. So they continued up. And then sometime later, then another wick dropped from another boy's hand, and then he dug there very excitedly, and he found silver. Oh, and he was very happy. Look at all this silver. It's wonderful. Come on, take it. And the other two, well, our wicks are still there, and the sage said up to gold. He said, well, okay, do what you want, but I'm taking this copper. See you later. And he went back down. They went higher. And after some more time, then the third boy's wick fell. And he very excitedly dug, and he found gold. And he said, here it is, look, the gold, and so much. Take, let's go. The fourth boy. My wick is still in my hand. Yeah, but the sage said up to gold. Yes, well, you know, but you never can tell. I mean, the wick is still there. So then the third boy said, well, you do what you want, but look get all this gold. I'm taking and I'm going. Goodbye. So then the fourth boy, he went up alone. He went up, 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 up. The key wick didn't drop. And he went all the way up to the top, to the most desolate region of the Himalayas, just mountain peaks, just bare earth, no vegetation, cold wind blowing. And so he came to an area which was kind of broad. It was very, very high, but kind of like we call a plateau. Kind of. So he could see in the distance a man. He was very surprised. Nobody lives up here. What is this man doing? And this man was standing. He was just standing like this, not moving at all. So then he became curious, and he walked over to that man. And as he got closer, he saw something very strange that positioned on this man's head. There was a kind of a wheel, a metal wheel, and the hub, the center portion of the wheel, was grinding into his head. The wheel was turning like this, and that hub was grinding, and blood was flowing down his head. And this man looked very uncomfortable. He was just standing like this. It looked like he was suffering. This was a very strange sight. So the Brahmin came forward to get a closer look, and he was also still thinking of wealth. So as he came up to the man, he said, do you know if there's any wealth around here? And as soon as he asked that question, then his kiwik dropped. And he became very happy. He was thinking, wow, there's wealth here, great. But he couldn't even begin to start looking before that wheel suddenly jumped from that man's head to his head. And as soon as it landed on his head, he found his body was frozen like this. And the wheel began to turn. And it was a very horrible feeling. Ah! But actually he couldn't even really do anything about it. He couldn't move. So he was just rooted to the spot, this wheel turning on his head, keeping him there. The other man, he suddenly snapped out of a dream. He was suddenly going, oh, oh, and holding his head and looking, I'm free, I'm free. And then he began to go, I'm getting out of here. And the Brahmin, he couldn't move, and he was saying, wait a minute, where are you going? He said, I'm getting out of here. I've been here so long with that wheel on my head, and now I'm free. Goodbye. No, what's happening? Please, before you go, tell me what's going on. And the man said, look, a long, long time ago, I received a benediction from a sage down the mountain. Myself and my friends. We each got one giwik. The sage said we'd find wealth up to gold. So their giwiks dropped and they found wealth up to gold, but I kept coming. So what happened? Because that was his own situation exactly. So the man said, yeah, I came up here, and same thing as what happened to you. Exactly, there was someone here with a wheel on his head. I asked him where wealth was. My giwik dropped and the wheel came on my head and he ran away. But before running away, he told me, I asked him what was going on, because you're asking me. And he told me that this region of the Himalayas, this area here, is where Kuvera, the treasure of the demigod, stores his treasure. So what's this wheel? What's happening with the wheel? Well, you see, the wheel is a weapon that Kuvera has placed here, which protects his treasure. So anyone who tries to dig up his wealth gets this wheel on the head. So then Well, what's going to happen now? The wheel's on my head. Yeah, it just keeps you there for a long, long, long. It keeps you until someone else comes. And you'll just be rooted to the spot. You won't be able to move. You won't feel any hunger or thirst. You won't have any problem for that. But you'll just be stuck. And the wheel will grind on your head. And it's constant pain, constant torment. For a long, long time. Well, how long? And then that man said, who's the king now? You just came from down below. So who's the king of India? And so the boy, he mentioned some king's name, recent king. And the man said, I don't know this name. You see, when I came up here, the king was Lord Ramchandra. The boy said, that was 2 million years ago! And the man said, yeah, and that's why I'm leaving. Bye. So that young man is probably still there. And we should be most cautious. We plan to take a trip to the Himalayas, not to go to that place and get the wheel on our head. So, Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kani, Sakala Ashanta, it is stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that those who seek after, so the first thing is Bhukti, and Bhukti means sense gratification, which also includes wealth, because that is a facility for sense gratification, just like it's illustrated in that story I just told. These young brahmanas, they were thinking, well, now we have to get married, so they wanted nice wives, and they were planning for a life of sense gratification. But in order to facilitate that, first they needed wealth. So that's bhukti. Then, after pursuing bhukti, as the story shows, one gets into trouble. He got the wheel on his head. Or you can take it philosophically. Wheel, chakras, samsara chakra. Actually, all of us are captured by a wheel. All of us are in that position. We're too foolish, perhaps, to notice it. But all of us are captivated by the samsara chakra, the wheel of birth and death. This is all scientifically explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like I think I was telling the other day, how materialistic people, they're interested in health and they're interested in the future. Everybody wants to know, what is the future? Consult in the West, they consult the prophecies of Nostradamus. They look in the newspapers, have an astrology section, whatever. Everybody wants to know what's over the horizon. What will happen to me? Now we've just entered a new year. So what will happen to me this year? I want to know. What will 1997 be like? But this, this past, present, future, this waiting on some future, what is this? This waiting on your death. That's what it is. That's what future is going to bring. Someone said death and taxes. But some people can avoid taxes, but nobody can avoid death. So this yearning to know the future, this is just very symptomatic. It's symptomatic of our captivation by the wheel of samsara. The days and nights are going by like the spokes on the wheel. The wheel is turning, and that is the movement. Just like when you see a wheel turning, then you see alternating light and darkness because the spokes are dark and in between there's light. So it's just like day and night. going by endlessly, day, night, day, night. That's all that's happening. And that wheel of birth and that wheel of samsara takes us onward and onward to the next body, the next body. And in each body, we're just waiting. What will the future bring? What will it? It's just bringing your death and another body, and your death and another body, and death and another body, death and another body. And they go on like this. Huh? Fascinating. Will o' the wisp, that's the expression Srila Prabhupada uses. Because they're hoping for heaven. Prabhupada says that the devotee sees heaven, the heavenly realm, Svargaloka, to be like a will of the wisp. So that heaven, in another purport, in Canto 2, Srila Prabhupada says, heavenly happiness is also enjoyed here on earth. He gives, the example is actually that of sex life. Sex life is so compelling because it is a very brief experience of heavenly happiness. So you can understand from that what heaven is like. It's just, a constant kind of erotic experience. That's a fact. In heaven, there's all kinds of things going on up there, which you can read about in the Vedic scriptures in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Apsaras, Prabhupada uses, he translates this word Apsara, which is kind of an angelic female, very beautiful, living in heaven. So Prabhupada translates Apsara very often as society girl. And society girl is a gentleman's way of saying prostitute. It's kind of, like a very indirect way of saying this woman is a prostitute. So these Apsaras, that's what they are. They're the prostitutes of heaven, to say it bluntly. And they're freely available. Also in the lower, the Bila Svarga, where the demons live, there are such freely available women. That is the so-called advantage. Here in the middle of the earthly planet, women who are freely available, they're not, at least not yet, so much respected. I suppose as time goes on. Actually, it already happened. Maybe, I don't know if you've noticed, you may have seen advertisements for a film that just was released called Evita. I don't know if the posters are up. When I was in just in Oslo and Gothenburg, I saw them. Some buses with the posters, Evita. So I read about some article about this film. And this Evita is Evita Perón, a woman who was the wife of one Juan Perón, who was the president of Argentina. And anyway, I won't go into all the details. This was back in the early 50s. Won't go in, but he was very, very powerful and for a time very popular ruler, and his wife also. She was very active. So somehow or other in Argentina now, since that time in the 50s, there is a group, they're almost like a fanatical religious group called the Peronistas. And of course they're political, but their devotion to Juan, and especially Evita, is like religious devotion. And they've made this Evita into a saint. Literally. I mean, they're sentimental Latin people. So they keep her picture, and they offer flowers or whatever, candles, and say prayers to her, and she's a saint. Her body was preserved like a mummy. And she died when she was only 30 years old. She died back still in the early 50s. And Juan Perón died much later, in 74. more than 20 years later. And in his funeral, there was a big state funeral. And what they did was, is they brought out Evita's body, 25-year-old dead body. They brought out, and they opened it up.
Yeah.
His coffin was open and hers was open because she's preserved like a mummy. And then everyone could walk by and get darshan. So, anyway, this is a movie now all about her. So it's funny how this celebrating Evita is spread. Now, it's not just Argentinian thing now. Now it's all over the world. Big movie starring Madonna. And this Madonna, she's a singer with the name Madonna. Now this is very ironic, actually. that she said, she's portraying this Evita, and she said in an interview, I wanted to play this part because I find that Evita and I have so much in common. It's a fact. What they have in common was that before Evita became the wife of Juan Perón, the president, she was a prostitute. She was just a prostitute. You see, what they call a common whore. That's just what she was. But this is Kali Yuga, so he somehow got attached to her because he was president, and it's Argentina. They call these places banana republics. So he could make her into the first lady of the whole country. So she was nothing but a prostitute. But she took to that position, very happily. And now she's a saint. So anyway, that seems to be the progress of Kali Yuga. But still, for most women today, the idea of becoming a prostitute is, not so, it's not a good job. So, anyway, you see, on Earth, things are supposed to be in human society regulated. Human beings have to follow rules and regulations, dharma. Just mentioned here, chatur varga. So it begins with dharma. And dharma means that, yes, one should be married if one is going to enter into male-female relationship, then that relationship should be sanctified in the eyes of God by scriptural marriage, and in that married position one is expected to be a civilized person, responsible, respectable person. You may know, it's interesting that in the there are divisions of the Vedas, the Vedic scriptures. That means the 4 Vedas. So these are divided into Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad, 4 divisions of Vedic literature. So Samhita is that which is learned by the brahmacharis. Samhita means all the hymns. They just learn it. They have to learn all these hymns. And then when they get out of the brahmachari ashram and start to move through the other ashrams, then they have to start to practice certain portions of what they've learned. So in the Grihastha ashram, the portion that they're to follow is called Brahmana, Brahmana portion. Now Brahmana means civilized person. So it's very interesting. This is a very interesting and very instructive correlation between the Grihastha ashram and the scriptures, the scriptural injunctions that pertain to that ashram. They're called the Brahmanas. So Grihasthas should be civilized, should be gentleman and lady, and there are so many rules and regulations that define and regulate that ashram. So this is the earthly region, or the duty of the human being. He has to control his senses. become responsible. So, but the aim for materialistic people is to use dharma to achieve some heavenly status. In heaven, then, of course, there's also kind of social regulation, but sense gratification is freely available. It's licensed. You can just take it. There's no sinful reaction. Because that heavenly enjoyment is the reward that the materialist gets for his following Vedic rules and regulations on earth in the human form. His austerity and penance and piety. So if he's a materialist, then that is his reward. He can go to heaven. You know from the Krishna book the description, for instance, Nalakugara, Manigriva, what they were up to in the Nandana gardens. So that the heaven is full of this. So this is bhukti, yes, and this is what, as I said, people are hoping for in the future. That was the point I was making. People are anxious that in the future I may, just like the religionists, so many religionists, they want to go to heaven. That's their plan. I may go to heaven. They believe in heaven. Others who are not so religious, then they're just hoping that in the future, in this life on earth, I'll get a lot of money, I'll win the lottery or something. And then I can enjoy like anything. They have so many all their dreams back there in the back of their mind that they want to fulfill. Some people, when they're told, they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "You've got 6 months to live." Then they just, well, 6 months, okay, they quit their job and just enjoy themselves to death. Because that's what they're hoping for in the future. But this doesn't last. And it is fraught with so many problems. Even if one goes to heaven, one cannot stay there. One has to come back down. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what to speak here on earth? Here on earth, the human beings, they have a lot. Human life, in human life, there's always a balance. There's always a balance that's maintained. This is just the nature of the human form. That as much as you get the opportunity to enjoy, that much you also must suffer, that much or more. Even the very, very wealthy people. You can just see the lives of rich people, powerful people. They become, it's horrible what happens to these people in time. Even though they have so much facility, they become so degraded, crazy, paranoid, sinful. So, sukha dukkha. This is the fate of the human form. You'll get sukha, you'll get enjoyment, but dukkha will also be there. And no matter what you try to do to avoid that, even if one is very wealthy and is able for some time to avoid the physical distresses, because he can keep himself by his money and comfort, and he has servants, and he's protected. He can stave off the physical distresses for some time, but his mind will be full of anxiety. So this is the allotment of the human form. So therefore, just like we saw in the story, the pursuit of pleasure, it leads to so many problems. The Brahmin got the wheel on his head, and then what did he want? He wanted to be free, that was all. He didn't care anymore. Just like you saw, that man who was up there. Now he was free from the wheel. He could have started digging. But he forgot all about it. Forget it. I don't care now. There's things in this world much more important than wealth. Like freedom, just to be able to move. So that's the liberationist. So bhukti, mukti. That is also calm. That is also a desire. The flip side of bhukti is mukti, because bhukti gets us in so much trouble. Bhukti keeps us tied to this wheel of birth and death, spinning round, 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 round. So one wants to get off. There's even this English expression, American English expression, stop the world, I want to get off. I think it was some old song like that. Anyway, that's the mukti, and that's also a desire. And then beyond that, siddhi. Siddhi means mystical powers. So these are, in the culture of Vedic knowledge, these are also possibilities. There's not only bhakti, which Dhruva Maharaj asked for, but there are many, many who aspire. They use the Vedic knowledge, the Vedic culture, to achieve bhukti, mukti, or siddhi. But this is rejected by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as, come, this is lust. This is lust, and therefore sakala ashanta. They can never be peaceful. Never be peaceful. As I was saying, bhukti, mukti, flip sides. That means you get bhukti, you get facility for sense enjoyment. You want freedom because so much anxiety, so much trouble associated with that. You want freedom. You get the freedom. You get the freedom, but very quickly then you want to enjoy. Because what is the point of being free if you can't enjoy it? That's what free, that's what it's all about. I'm free. So, let's enjoy. Actually, you can refer back to that story. Those 4 Brahmin boys, they were free of the Gurukul. That's immediately what they started to think. Let's get married, let's enjoy. We're under this regime and the Gurukul, having to practice brahmacharya and learn. Now we're free, let's enjoy. Well, first we need money. So this is flipped like a coin. 2 sides of the same coin. Bhukti, mukti. And siddhi, see what is siddhi? Siddhi is just gaining power so that one can think. He may think that before I tried for this bhukti, mukti, I couldn't get it together. Why? Because I didn't have enough power. See? I didn't have the power to control my senses. When I wanted mukti or bhukti, sense enjoyment, I had to work so hard. That was very troublesome. I had to work and make so many arrangements. But if I get siddhi power, then poof, there it is. I just alakazam. I can enjoy. And then I also have the power to be free of any complications that come from that enjoyment. This is the idea of the mystic yogi. He just wants to be able to do what he wants. But he knows, I need power for that. Power over material nature. Patanjali Yoga Sutras, that the goal is to merge with Ishvara. They believe in Ishvara. They accept that there is Ishvara, super soul controller. We heard the verse the other night, Chvara Sarvabhutanam Adesha. So, Ishvara is there in the heart. The followers of Patanjali, this mystic yoga system, they accept that. But their goal is to become one with the Ishvara. In other words, to become the Ishvara. So this is actually the cause of the fall down of the living entity from the spiritual position. This is what starts all the trouble. Because we want to be Ishvara. And then that desire to be God, it divides into 2 departments. To enjoy and to be free. So anyway, these are just bhukti, mukti, siddhi. 3 phases of calm, and in any of these positions, ashanta. One cannot be satisfied. One is always struggling, as the mystic yogis mentioned in so many classes about how, in Prabhupada's books, how much trouble they have to maintain their powers. intelligent. He's understood. Although he's not a Brahmana, he's a Kshatriya, but he's understood. Mukti, mukti, siddhi. What is that? Just so much trouble. And so therefore he's asked, just like we know from this song, Abhaya Chandra Lindure. What is the Abhaya position? The fearless position that is to be situated at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. I'll stop here. Any questions?
What are symptoms of contamination of desire for siddhi in life of the devotees?
Yes. That one wants to become a strong devotee, but by one's own prowess. To be a strong devotee, what does it mean? It means to love Krishna. The strength, Krishna says, Bala Balavatam in Bhagavad Gita, which means I am the strength of the strong. So a devotee, one is actually a strong devotee or pure devotee, simply places himself under Krishna's strength. He's like, Prabhupada gave different examples, like a child, faithful child, who was always under the protection of the father. Or Prabhupada used the example of a dog. The dog who has a master. The dog becomes very bold because he has a master. The dog who has a master, you see in those houses where there's a dog in the yard, and when anyone walks by, they run out. Very often they're very little dogs, hardly bigger than a rat. But they come running out. Anyone walks by, like, as if they're big, ferocious dogs. So how is it that a little thing like that can become so bold? Because he has a master. Otherwise, in India, the street dogs, they're not so bold at all. You see them. Everyone's been to India, see the street dogs. As soon as a person is coming, they're running away. They have no master. They're looking for a master. Sometimes they're hoping that he'll give them shelter. So, Srila Prabhupada said our aspiration should be to become the dog of God. That is the actual, so to speak, strong devotee. So the contamination of siddhi is that one is thinking he can become a strong devotee by himself. Some other process, and then simply faithfully surrendering to Guru and Krishna, carrying out their instructions to the letter, as Srila Prabhupada did. You see, Srila Prabhupada, he's a perfect example of a strong devotee. And how did Srila Prabhupada present himself? That he said, my credit, if I have any credit, it is that I exactly followed the order of my Guru Maharaj. That's all. Prabhupada used to say, we are not scholars, we are not big academic scholars, we are not politicians. He once even said, I heard from one of his disciples who played Tampura in one of Prabhupada's recordings. early recordings of Tampura background. So as they were getting ready to record, this devotee, because he was a bit of a musician, so he was tuning the Tampura. And Prabhupada saw him very carefully tuning them up and listening. And Prabhupada just said, "We are not musicians." In other words, Prabhupada didn't even really care if the Tampura was tuned. He was going to chant the glories of the Lord, that's all. Who cares if the Tampura is tuned? So, this was Srila Prabhupada. His attention was fixed on service to Krishna. And as far as any bombastic display of one's own special powers or abilities, Prabhupada was completely disinterested. So this is a pure devotee. This is what we call a strong devotee. Who's stronger than Prabhupada? Prabhupada spread this movement all over the world. Advanced age in just very short time. So this strength is Krishna's own strength. So that's a strong devotee. And the more we try to generate ourselves independently, some power, some ability, or practice, then we make ourselves weak. Any other questions? Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Suhotra Maharaj ki Jai.